There's a leadership style I like to call Seagull Leadership. Maybe you've had a personal experience with a seagull like my wife, Cece. We were at a very important meeting of top leaders. She had this beautiful, nice new white dress on. There's a reception right outside on the patio. And all of a sudden this seagull swoops in, craps everywhere, and of course it hits Cece and ruins her new white dress, and it stinks to high heaven. That was her personal experience with seagulls. But that's exactly how they operate. They're flying up high, all of a sudden before anybody can react, they swoop down low, they crap on everything, make a mess, then they fly off back to their perch. And that's why I talk about some leaders use Seagull Leadership. They show up, they criticize, they create a bunch of chaos, everybody feels like crap, then they fly off and disappear, leaving everybody with the problems. And they repeat this over and over, and it stinks. And it leads to burnout, and it leads to turnover. If you've ever worked for someone like this, you know exactly what I'm talking about. In fact, last week I shared with you my experiences with one of my leaders, Mr. Butt. Mr. Butt was certainly a seagull leader. If you'd like to learn more about that, if you want to listen to that before you listen to this video, which goes in the opposite direction, that thumbnail is called Stop the Burnout, and we'll put a link to that video in the description. But today, let's move in the opposite direction. I want to give you 4 areas that people first leadership use behaviors that are very different, that help prevent burnout, that reduces burnout, that increases retention, that creates thriving teams. And I'm also going to read something to you at the end that's very personal. It's from a letter that a leader wrote me about the impact. And after we talk about those 4 areas, I'm going to share with you one of my personal treasures. It's actually part of a letter that one of my team members and leaders wrote me at the close of my career. And the reason I want to do that is because it says more about people first leadership than I ever could. So let's start with number 1, which is trust versus control. The boss leader believes that you get results through control, that you got to be present to get results. But people first leader understands that trust generates something that control never can, and that's ownership and buy-in and innovation and autonomy. How does this show up? It's like when there's a decision to be made, it's more collaboration around that decision, especially when it affects others. It includes conversations that might be, what do you think we ought to do here? What do you think's the best way forward? Rather than just simply telling people what to do. Teaching people how to do critical thinking, how to own the outcomes. Trusting first is part of the vulnerability that a people first leader wears. They know that when they demonstrate that trust in their team members, that it creates more trust, it creates more buy-in. It includes that excellence anywhere mindset, realizing that your people can generate excellent results regardless of where, when, or how they do that. And I can't stress over and over again, when people first leaders use that trust to generate that autonomy, how much more innovation and creativity you get out of the team. Just think about it yourself personally. When you've worked for that leader that you knew trusted you to carry out your mission, what did you do? You leaned in more, you were more innovative, you were more creative. You wanted to be worthy of that trust. No micromanaging, looking over the shoulder, letting the leader's own anxiety reflect on the team members. That's not trust. It's fine to have regular check-ins and agreed upon check-ins, to have timelines and milestones, but that's different from micromanaging. So trust is so much more powerful than control. The second area that people first leadership shows up in is transparency equals safety, equals a stronger sense of belonging. The stronger the sense of belonging, the higher the performance, the more buy-in by the team members. The boss leader, the seagull leader, is not looking for any feedback. They're not looking for truth. All the communication is downward. The thing you learn about people first leaders is they ask for that feedback. They look for feedback and they make truth welcome. The earlier that you talk about problems and challenges, the better for the team, for everybody, for the customer, for the client. So people first leaders encourage those discussions. People first leaders lead with the benefit of good intentions. Just when something goes haywire, don't start judging right off. People first leaders use their curiosity to ask questions, to understand more about how we got there and what decisions were made. Because people do have good intentions. People do want to be successful. And I have to say this here is just found out yesterday about the loss of a great friend and a great mentor to me, the one who taught me the power of saying, help me understand. Before he ever judged me, he always said, help me understand, Joey. And then the transparency in general is about leading by being transparent with good news and bad news. In fact, you're going to find out when you openly share the bad news, team members are going to lean in to help get things on the right track. But part of transparency is people first leadership provides timely feedback. Even though it may be critical feedback, they do it with the right tone and they do it in a timely manner so that people know where they stand and they know how to be successful. When people realize that they're being included in the know, even if it's more than they need to know, I would rather err on that side than not enough information. When people feel included, they lean in more. Transparency works in a way that increases everybody's sense of belonging. The third area that people first leadership really focuses on is recognition and appreciation, making sure people understand why their role is important, that it has meaning. The boss leader, the Seagull leader, rarely has time to share any appreciation. They're too busy crapping on everything, criticizing everything, or just simply not recognizing the results and the efforts of the team members. A people-first leader makes sure people know in a very genuine way and a very specific way why they're appreciated and what the recognition is about. That people weekly and on a monthly basis hear those thank yous and those appreciation comments, recognition for the things that they got accomplished. Do you know that most of the surveys show that only about 25% of the workforce even feels like they're appreciated in their job? People first leader makes sure that they communicate with clarity why the team member's role is important, why what they do really matters. You'll hear me say this over and over again, but when leaders care, people care. When people feel more valuable, they become more valuable. And the fourth big difference in people first leadership and boss leadership or Seagull leadership is people first over results. In fact, when you're people first, you know you're going to get results. You're going to get better results. But you have to have that priority, and that's what people first leaders do. They prioritize their people first. What does this mean in behaviors? Well, let's start with the boss style leader, because they put results ahead of what anybody's needs are as a person. It's results first. No matter who created the crisis, no matter who loaded somebody's plate up with conflicting priorities, no matter who made the commitment with the client for an unreasonable deadline, no matter who didn't provide all the resources that were really needed, that's boss leadership, Seagull leadership. And the people first leader is the direct opposite of that. When people are the first priority, you work the process around to get the results. You let people lean in and use their autonomy to be innovative and creative and get the results that everybody wants. People first leaders collaborate with the team members more before they make those commitments. People first leaders inquire more of the client and the customers about the need and the timeline. I can't tell you how often when I ask that additional question or two of a client that I found out that my assumption they needed it next week was completely off base. In fact, they might be on vacation the next 3 weeks. And yet I was creating a 7-day deadline for our team when we could have scheduled that workout over the next 28 days. A people-first leader works and collaborates both on the customer side and the team member side to find the right tension, the right deadline. When people-first leaders delegate work and talk about projects, they stop and listen for conflicting priorities, conflicting deadlines. They want to have that discussion up front. What resources do we need? Who has a personal conflict with this deadline that they're going to be out? You see, because when you're people first, those kindergarten graduations, those soccer games and coaching the baseball team, that elder care, those kind of things matter. And they can be worked around. And people first leaders work to understand that because they know their people and their people are comfortable in sharing what their personal needs are. It's a better outcome for everybody. And another pet peeve of mine is people first leaders make sure that they're not holding up the ship. In other words, that they're doing their part to timely move the information along. They're helping prod the client or the customer to do their part. And people first leader make sure they're not the reason why we're running up to this deadline that's going to fall in some team members' lap. I'm going to say it again, when people know you genuinely care about them, they're going to care about the clients and the customers. They're going to care about their role. People will run through a wall for leaders that care for them, that have their back. That's people first leadership. Here's what I want you to notice about the 4 areas that we talked about. None of them deal directly with burnout or retention, and yet people first leadership leads to less burnout and prevents burnout. It leads to better retention. It actually turns team members into raving cheerleaders. People aren't looking for the door because they're not running from anything. They're not hearing and seeing the seagull swoop down to crap on them. And if you're a team member, really think about these 4 areas because one, you want to really think about the kind of leader that you're working for, but what about the leader that you're going to grow into? You don't need a title to do the things we talked about today. And here's the golden nugget from all of it. Said in words far better than I could ever say, and especially since they're not my words, they're a team member's words, they're another leader's words, as they expressed what people first leadership meant to them. And I want to read this word for word. You allowed me to express myself without suggesting or forcing me to be like anyone else. You saw the diamond in the rough that may not be evident to those with a naked eye. Your hard truth was always easier to digest with the kindness you gave it with. And for that, I will be eternally grateful. You nurtured my personal and my professional growth, never allowing me to sell myself short. You challenged me to look beyond the obstacles and see the opportunity. I share that not because it has anything to do with me, but because it's such a crystal clear picture of what people first leadership is and the impact that it has on people's lives. Hard truth given with kindness. Belief in someone before they can even see it, more than they believe in themselves. Never letting someone sell themselves short. I hope this opens your eyes to some of the things that are possible. And I have a challenge for you as you are growing your legacy right now. Here's an opportunity for you to help others. If this video inspired you in any way, if it gave you an insight that's going to help you be better, put it in the comments so others can see it and learn from it. Share it with us. What was your takeaway? If you want to be part of the community where we talk more about these world life experiences, we talk about workplace culture, leadership development, then subscribe. I encourage you to be part of our community. Today was very deliberate contrast to my introduction of Mr. Butt, a contrast to being a Seagull leader. You're writing your legacy every day, and that's why people first leadership is so important. It's important to your full potential. It's important to everyone that you touch. So be intentional and realize, as always on our daily journey, remember, be better.